That which has been given to you is only the wherewithal of the transient life of this world. But that which is with Allah is better and more enduring for those who believe and put their trust in their Lord. Al-Shura 42:36. It was very difficult for me to choose an ayah for this reminder, and I have been thinking about it for some time. I realized at the end of all that thinking that our religion, by definition, is simple and its teachings are straightforward. So I don't have to make something complicated when, by definition, it's supposed to be simple. This reminder is a reminder that I need, that I think everyone in this room needs, and it is something that we constantly have to live with. It is so easy to remind ourselves of, but at the same time, it's very, very easy to forget. I want to start with just a rough translation of the ayah that I recited before you. Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Shura, the 42nd surah says, "Then whatever you have been given, Fama utitum," and the word ma suggests that there is an openness. Anything that you have been given, and in addition to all of that, it's min shay'in. You could say ma utitumuhu. It could have been a pronoun, but instead of adding a pronoun, it's min shay'in and not even shayan. It's shay'in, which is very unusual language. It suggests any and all things that you can imagine that you have been given. Now, in using those two words together in the ayah, Allah is talking about every single object. Physical object that you own, whether it's clothing, a car, a house, or whatever you own, down to a pen that's to your name. In addition, Allah is also talking about whatever you and I have been given in terms of life experiences. What kind of parents we have been given, what kind of youth, what kind of opportunities we were given, what kind of friends you and I were given. Everything that I have been given, everything that I have experienced in my life thus far is inside. فَمَعْتِيتُهُمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. It's captured within it. So this ayah is going to make a commentary about my entire existence on this earth. Before I go any further, a reflection just on the fact that the passive form was used. Utitum, that you have been given. In other words, none of the experiences I have enjoyed, not just the things that I own or that I think I own, rather none of the experiences that I had in life are actually mine. They were a door that was opened to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was the one that opened every chapter of my life, one adventure to the next, to the next, to the next. For those of you that are married, who you married, and if there was a process before you got married, every part of that process was actually from Allah. Every single conversation was from Allah. This entire story of ours, and we don't remember so much of it. When we look back, we don't remember so many things that happened in our own lives, but they were all from Allah. Actually, the last 10 years, it's becoming more and more of a blur for me. I don't know what I was up to in 2007. I can't tell you, I don't know. It's just becoming blurred together. I can't tell you what happened in 2011 or 2012. I look at my children and they are growing. My now almost 12-year-old, I look at her and it's hard for me to remember what she looked like when she was 4. I have to look at a picture to try and remember. I can't remember that anymore. But Allah Azza wa Jal gave me each and every one of those experiences, whether I remember them or I'm conscious of them or not. All of them together. Allah sums up in one phrase. فَمَتَاعَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. Basically, the culmination of all of our life experiences, whatever good, whatever bad, or whatever we think was good or bad happened to us, boils down to one thing. فَمَتَاعَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا, which is roughly translated as the enjoyment of worldly life. All the things that you have been given, all they are is just the enjoyment of worldly life. I wanted to explore in this reminder the meanings of the word mata in a little more depth, more than what we have heard before. Those of you that have been listening to my khutbah and durus before, I've discussed mata before as something to utilize, but not necessarily to enjoy. This is part of the base meaning, like that little girl who al-Asma'i saw. I saw who was scrubbing dishes at the bank of a river. Her goat came, grabbed the scrubber, and ran away with it. She started crying and saying, Akadaha madai, he took my mata away. The brush that I was scrubbing with, right? So from it he derived that mata must amount to things like a spoon or a fork or a shovel, something that you use but you don't necessarily enjoy. Nobody grabs a spoon and says, check this out, check what I've got. Nobody shows off their spoons and forks and shovels unless they are in the industry or something. But typically, you don't do that. So it's something that you use but you don't necessarily enjoy. But I decided to dig a little bit deeper into this word and see what else has been said in the literary precedent of the Arabic language, because at the end of the day, this word, like this ayah, has pretty significant importance. My entire life is being summed up by this one word. My whole life on this planet amounts to this one word. So I should understand what connotations this word possesses. The first thing I found interestingly, very recently actually, they used mata al-nabid for wine. This is pre-Islam obviously. When the wine gets redder and redder, it matures. When it reaches the point that it possibly can't mature anymore, it has reached its climax. That's when they say it has reached the state of mata. In other words, when something reaches as far as it can go, when something reaches maturity. Let's go a little further. The Arabs say, which is actually used for a rope that is twisted and coiled well together, something that is twined well. Not only does it have this idea of being twined, but also the idea that the rope is now ready for use. Because when you twine a rope properly, it's matured. No more work needs to be done on it. Now it can be put to use. They use it for people. When a person becomes mature and becomes refined in his character, meaning he can now go out and deal with the world. He can go do business now. He's graduated from certain prerequisites. He is ready to be used. That's the idea of a human being reaching mata. Then al-mati min kulli shay. At the end of the day, this is the most comprehensive definition I have found, and I want to finish these definitions before I share some thoughts with you. Anything that reaches mata, anything that becomes mati, that's the ism file, active participle. From anything that becomes this is actually something that has reached the most maturity it possibly can, the most possible within it. Mata is actually something that can be benefited from. Let's stop there for a second. We'll stop at every piece of this definition. First, it was mature. It can't mature anymore. So Allah is saying whatever experiences happen to you, part of the reason for giving you these experiences is they are going to mature you. This is part of you growing. The good things and the bad things that happen to you and me are part of us growing. Part of our growth is sometimes things that we are proud of, and sometimes there are things that we are not proud of. Things that we have done. We look back and we say, I'm glad we have done those things. And there are things we look back and we say, I wish I never did those things. Well, actually, that was part of your mata. It was part of your growth and maturation process. Even the regret that you feel looking back, that regret is a gift from Allah. That regret alone might save you. That might be the reason for you and me to enter Jannah. I'm reminded in Surah Al-Kahf of the gardener who, at the end of his tragic experience of losing his beautiful garden, says, Ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbi ahada. He has regret. I wish I never commit shirk. Look at what's happened to me. But actually, that regret is a happy ending to that story, because at least now he's turned back to Allah. He's changed his ways. So the first thing is that everything in life is there to mature you. The second thing, ma yuntafahu bihi, what can be benefited from. Think about this definition of mata. Every experience in life is something you can benefit from. Allah chose this word for a reason. There was some good in it for you, even though you may not be able to see it. You may not be able to recognize it at face value. And it may be frustrating at that moment. It may be something where your first response would be, why would this be happening to me? And Allah's way of responding to us is that Allah is saying that it's something you could have benefited from. Yuntafa'u bihi. Then, and it can be put to use. It can be put to use. Now, Allah is saying every single object that we own, every last bit of our possessions, and every single experience is actually supposed to be utilized. Adversity and good times all together are supposed to be put to use. They are part of something greater. Meaning, this life, the things that we are given, they are given to be put to use. This takes us back to the original meaning of mada. What happens to wine? Not by Muslims, but by non-Muslims. What happens to wine or to alcohol when it matures? It gets drunk. What happens to the rope when it gets twisted? It gets used. When your life is full of mata, now it's time for you yourself to put yourself to use. Looking back for a lot of people, when they look back at their life, their past experiences, their failures, and their tragedies, they debilitate them and they are not able to do anything in their future. But for people who understand what mata is, what this world is for, they look at their past experiences and it makes them stronger. That Allah put me through that must mean I'm stronger than this, and maybe I can help a million other people. Help them go through these experiences and see them in the way that they are supposed to be seen. This would be looking at one's own experiences as mata. Now going a little further. The part of definition of mata is something that will come to end, that will not last. It cannot be used forever. That scrubble will break eventually, or won't scrub as good as it used to. That rope will eventually snap. Even that wine will eventually be no good. So every single thing that we possess is not here forever. Today, we are senior living in a facility where people that have a difficult time taking care of themselves are being taken care of, and where I teach at Bayana, the average age among our students and the faculty that's there, it's younger people. There's typically a young audience in the Juma. We feel like we have some things that they don't have. Someone might feel as they walk by someone who's in their 90s, or someone who's using a can, or someone who can't even take 2 steps by themselves. They might look at them and say, Subhanallah, I feel bad for these people. But you know what? Either we are going to be in the ground, or we are going to be one of those people. We are going to be in that state one day. And they, if you ask them, look back at what you had in life, they'll say, it felt like a day, or like the blink of an eye. Lamha al-basar, that's all it felt like. Time passes by so quickly. Subhanallah, we have to be conscious of the fact that time is leaving us. This mata is not staying. Our entire life is passing us by, and the only thing at the end of it that we can put it to use for is the akhirah. So Allah says, وَمَا إِنْدْ أَلَا خَيْرٌ وَأَكْبَى. What I want to share with you is that in this life, sometimes we make a plan for the next 10 years or 5 years. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how much Quran I want to memorize. This is how much I would like to be able to make in terms of money. This is when I would like to get married. We set goals for ourselves and we strive towards those goals. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I tell you, if you internalize this ayah, If you internalize this ayah, you learn to put those plans in one compartment in your head. And in the other compartment, you realize that all of that means nothing if I'm not building my akhirah. All of those plans are worthless, they are meaningless, they are not any kind of accomplishment at all. If this is not building me towards Allah, if it's not taking me closer to Him, if it's not making me a slave of Allah. There are people's perception of us, and then there's the reality. People's perception, our own perception, and the reality. People's perception may be you are successful. People's perception may be you're knowledgeable or you have accomplished something, and the opposite is true too. People's perception might be you're worth nothing, but you know what? People's perception at the end of the day mean nothing. It stands to give you nothing before Allah. It will not add to your deeds. It won't take away from them. People's criticism will not take away from you, and people's praise will not add to you. It will not. And at the end of the day, when people get praise and criticism from others all the time, you know what starts happening? They start getting affected by it. They start seeing themselves in light of how other people see them. So their image of themselves become polluted because they are not seeing themselves for who they really are. They're seeing themselves in light of other people's word. This is why we have Allah's word, so we can see ourselves in light of Allah's words, and that will help us see ourselves for who we really truly are. At the end of the day, truly, we can have friendships and family and loved ones and community. We can have all of those things, but at the end of the day, we are in this world alone. We came alone and we are going to leave alone. And in that solitude, if you don't find a connection with Allah, then all these fake connections that you and I have that are not really based on a relationship with Allah, they will all disappear. They will not last. The facade will dissipate eventually, if not in this life, then in the next. So we have to internalize a very powerful reality that Allah has given us. We treasure all of our relationships so long as they are something that is building us toward the akhirah. So I want to leave you with this picture. وَمَا إِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرًا وَأَبْقَى. What Allah has in His possession is better. What we have right now is also in Allah's possession. It's not like this is not in the possession of Allah, but by using the word ma here, it is as though Allah is saying, I don't want to tell you what I have yet. I have a mystery for you. There is something I have in my possession and it's better. It's better. In other words, it has not been given to you yet. Now, when one would immediately think what Allah has, He must be talking about Jannah, but as a matter of fact, because He opened the door by saying Ma indallah, not wali jannatu khayran wa abka, He said Ma indallah khayrun wa abka. Whatever Allah has, and what Allah has, some of which He gave to you now, not just in terms of dunya, but He also gave you in terms of that road to Jannah. That road itself is better. The revelation of Allah is better than everything else you have been given. The word of Allah is better, because if you and I can live by it, it will get us somewhere far, far better. So in this ayah, there are two comparisons that we constantly have to make. If we are going to survive in this world and not be taken in by the perceptions that are actually not real, the perception of people or the false self-image that we might develop, what is that reality check? وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. But that which is with Allah is better and more enduring for those who believe. Al-Shukr 42:36. Whatever Allah has is firstly better and secondly lasts longer as far as those who really have Iman are concerned. So now every experience in life I compare to something else that Allah has, and what Allah has must be better. It's a small reminder. You go into the store to buy yourself some new clothes. The moment you're putting those on the cash register, just at that moment, think وَمَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَيْرًا وَأَبْقَى لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. What Allah has, the clothing Allah will give me is better. Whatever is acceptable with Allah in Jannah for me is better for those who believe. We are about to eat some good food. You enjoy the food if you could tell yourself right as you're eating. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. The akhirah doesn't just become some cliche thing you bring up or you only bring up when somebody is going through trouble. No. Inshallah, Allah will give you in the akhirah. It becomes a part of your daily life. The akhirah becomes something you think about all the time. Because Allah didn't just describe it as something that is there in the heavens. He described it as something that is with Allah. Now what does inda means? Inda suggests closeness. So the acquisition of Jannah necessarily means closeness to Allah. So what Allah is offering in this ayah also is closeness to Him. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. They place their trust in Allah. I tell you, if you and I develop this attitude, then worldly possessions and worldly gain and worldly loss will become easy to deal with. Relationships become easy because if you realize what Allah has is better, the next time you get into a quarrel, some kind of tension between you and a friend, you and a family member, and your pride gets in the way of fixing those tensions, we must realize that what Allah has is better, and this world is going to go before we know it. Before we know it, this will mean nothing. There are people that have ruined relationships for years because their pride gets in the way of apologizing. They can't get themselves to say sorry. No, I'm not going to say sorry. It's the other one's fault. Why should I say sorry? And they're going to take that to their grave. They didn't have much time here. And by the way, when we are standing in front of Allah, the pride's going to be gone. You and your brother that you were angry with, and both standing in front of Allah, and you are both begging Allah for mercy. Had you forgiven each other, you could have both earned Jannah just by the act of forgiveness. When you put it in the perspective, is your pride really worth that much? Is your anger really that heavy that you couldn't earn yourself what Allah is offering? When things are put in this perspective, life becomes easy to deal with. We learn the expression, Kabir hatakpur sagira taskur. Make something big and it becomes a big deal. Make something small, it becomes a small thing. Well, you know what? This ayah is about making akhirah big and making dunya small. That's all it's about. We're going to go through life. We are going to have careers. We are going to have educational accomplishments. We are going to have challenges. All of those things are going to be there. But you know what? These are all temporary. These are all temporary. One day will come, there will be a congregation. They are going to make salah and they are going to make an announcement that there's a janazah and it's going to be mine and it's going to be yours. It's going to happen. People are going to pray over us and then we are going to be gone. And it's sooner rather than later. I mean, quite a bit of our life has already passed us by. So it's not like we are getting further away from that day. We are only getting closer. So the sooner we internalize that, whatever Allah has is better, because we are heading towards it anyway, we are just doing ourselves a favor. If we could just learn to utilize our time in the right way. We make 10 years plan and 15 years plan, yet we don't think about the akhirah. How do you think about the akhirah? And how do you practically plan for the akhirah? You don't make a 10-year plan. You don't make a 15-year plan for the akhirah. You make a daily plan. It's not about making long-term goals. It's about how did you spend today? What are you going to do after Jummah? How are you going to spend tomorrow? When are you going to wake up? What are you going to do with your free time? When are you going to erase those useless games off your phone? When are you going to stop watching so much TV? When are you going to stop? When are you going to stop wasting time just chatting away or trolling? When are you going to stop? When are you going to hold yourself a higher standard if not today? If you don't make that change in your day, how you go to sleep, how you wake up, what you say and what you do, especially how you spend what you think is free time. Because it's not free. You're not paying for it now, but you and I will be paying for it with Allah. We will be paying for it. There's a price. We may not realize we are going to be paying for it, but it's on record. You know how people feel relaxed when they're off the clock, when they punch out of the office? Well, we are constantly on the clock with these angels. They don't take a break, and when they do, they put the alternatives on shift. So that plan has to be made for our day. And inshallah ta'ala, Friday is a great day to start new habits. Friday is a great day for introspection. We take extra time out for ibadah anyway. We take extra time out to get ready to meet Allah anyway on this day. Allah already enables us to become spiritually more powerful, more strengthened this day than other days. So why not make some serious commitments to yourself? This is not for you to share with anyone else. This is just you and yourself. You are your worst critic when it comes to this. You and I have to decide how we are going to live our lives differently. Because wallahi, the moment we start saying, I'm doing pretty good, that actually I have nothing to change in my life, I'm sad, that delusion, it must be that so many other people have given us that false sense of delusion. They have blinded us for so long. They have poured so much dust in our eyes that now we can't even see how we are for ourselves. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't make us of those that are blinded to their own reality. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal constantly makes the book of Allah a mirror through which we can see the truth of who we are and constantly seek to improve ourselves.